At family Easter, my sister saved the last plate for me and said, "Take what you can get." The plate was already sweating through the flimsy paper when she held it out, like she'd been keeping it warm in her hands just long enough for it to feel deliberate. A slice of ham curled at the edges, glossy and drying at the same time. 2 spoonfuls of potato salad had slumped into one beige mound. There was a single roasted carrot, limp and shiny, and a dinner roll that looked like someone had already pinched it and put it back. My sister's smile didn't reach her eyes. She tilted the plate toward me like she was offering charity. "Here," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear over the clatter of cutlery and the kids shrieking in the yard. "I saved the last plate for you. Take what you can get." Then she laughed. One of those quick little laughs that makes everyone else laugh automatically because they can tell there's a script. I felt my face go hot. I could smell the ham, that sweet glazed smell that was suddenly nauseating. My fingers hovered near the edge of the plate, not even sure I want to touch it. I stood there in the doorway between the kitchen and the dining room, still half in my jacket because I hadn't even had a chance to take it off properly. The house was too warm, full of bodies and perfume and oven heat. Someone had a pastel tablecloth spread over the table, and there were little plastic eggs scattered like confetti. Mom's voice floated from the sink. "Oh, good. You made it." But it sounded like a line she'd already used on someone else. Dad didn't look up from carving, just kept slicing the ham with his elbows tucked in like he was guarding it. My aunt looked over the rim of her wine glass, eyebrow raised, waiting to see what I'd do. The kids had already been through the chocolate and were vibrating on the carpet. My sister, Holly, held the plate steady and kept smiling, like she was daring me to be ungrateful. I could feel the room pause around us, not in silence, but in attention. My stomach tightened like a fist. I didn't want to take the plate. I didn't want to refuse it. I didn't want to perform either option for them. It was supposed to be a normal Easter lunch. That's what I told myself on the drive over, hands tied on the steering wheel, rehearsing the right amount of cheerful. My parents live 40 minutes away, out past the suburbs where the streets get wider and the lawns get more aggressively green. They host every year. Same backyard, same fold-out table, same weird family politics disguised as tradition. This year, Mom had texted in the group chat, "Easter Sunday, lunch at 1, bring an appetite. We're doing it proper." She tagged everyone with rabbit emojis like that made it cute. I'd replied yes straight away, because I'm still the kind of person who answers quickly so nobody can accuse me of being difficult. I'd even bought those little mini eggs for the kids, the ones wrapped in foil, because I didn't want to show up empty-handed and give anyone an excuse. I wasn't even late because I didn't care. I was late because my manager called me last minute. I work retail. It's not glamorous. It's a job I took because it was available and because I needed something that would pay the rent while I tried to figure out the rest of my life. Someone called in sick. They were short-staffed. My manager did that "I'm really sorry, but" voice that isn't actually sorry because they know you'll say yes. I tried to say no. I genuinely tried. But then I pictured Mom's face if I didn't show up at all, the way she would tell everyone, "He's just going through a phase, like my whole life is a phase," and I heard myself say, "Okay, I'll come in." I finished the shift, drove straight there, and walked in still smelling faintly like the store's cleaning spray and cheap perfume samples. Apparently, they'd started without me. Not officially, not in a way they'd admit. But the kitchen told the truth. Trays were scraped. The ham was half gone. The salad bowls had those spoon marks through the middle, like someone had already dug for the best bits. Plates were stacked in the sink, crusted with gravy. The table in the dining room was full of people leaning back in their chairs with that satisfied, post-eating looseness. This wasn't "we're just about to eat." This was "you missed it." Holly had been hovering near the kitchen island when I came in, hair perfect, earrings catching the light, already in hostess mode, even though it wasn't her house. She's 3 years older than me, and she's always been like that. Organized, polished, the one who knows where everything is even if she doesn't live there. Mom loves it. Dad respects it. Everyone else adapts to it. She has this way of making decisions for the room and having it feel natural like gravity. I'm not good at that. I've never been good at that. My whole childhood was me trying not to take up too much space while Holly somehow took up just enough to be adored. So when she handed me that plate and said, "Take what you can get," it wasn't random. It was the newest version of an old thing. The kind of comment that sounds like a joke if you're not the target, and sounds like a door closing if you are. I forced my fingers to close around the plate, because refusing it felt like stepping into a fight I didn't have the energy for. The plate was warm and damp against my palm, and the flimsy paper bowed slightly under the weight. "Thanks," I heard myself say, because politeness is my default even when I'm being humiliated. Holly's eyebrows lifted, pleased. "No worries," she said, and then she leaned her hip against the counter and added, "We didn't know if you were coming. Mom said you'd probably be stuck at work again." She glanced at Mom like they had a private joke. Mom let out a little laugh that wasn't quite a laugh. "I didn't say that," she said, but she didn't correct the idea either. Dad finally looked up, chewing, and said, "Should have told us you'd be late." "I did," I said, and my voice sounded thinner than it should have. "I texted." Dad frowned like he had to search his memory for that text and decide whether it mattered. "Well," he said, shrugging, already done with it. "Food's there. Food's there. Now we saved you a plate. Not sorry you got stuck. Just, the responsibility is mine." I took the plate and moved toward the back steps, because there wasn't really a seat left at the table. The chairs were occupied, people's handbags draped over the backs, kids sprawled across laps. The only empty chair was stacked with folded napkins and a pile of Eastercraft stuff. Holly didn't offer to move anything. Mom didn't notice. I ended up standing near the sliding door for a second like a spare piece of furniture. Then I slipped outside and sat on the edge of the back steps with my plate balanced on my knees. The backyard was loud with children hunting eggs, grass damp and bright. Someone's speaker was playing a low playlist of old pop songs. I could smell the barbecue residue and the floral candle Mom insists on lighting inside. I watched my younger cousins sprint past with chocolate smeared on their faces, and I tried to swallow the lump in my throat that had nothing to do with food. The ham tasted sweet and cold at the same time. The potato salad was watery. The roll was stale. It wasn't about the quality, not really. It was about the message inside the plate. "Here's what's left for you." Holly came out a few minutes later, holding her wine, barefoot on the pavers like she owned the place. She sat one step above me, deliberately higher, and said, "You could have just swapped shifts, you know." "I tried," I said, keeping my eyes on my plate, because looking at her face made my chest tighten. "I couldn't." She took a sip and sighed dramatically. "It's just, you're always behind," she said, like she was stating a fact about the weather. "Everyone else has plans, careers, kids, and you're still," she waved her hand vaguely. "This." I felt my jaw clench. I cut a piece of ham just to have something to do. "It's a job," I said. "I'm working." Holly laughed softly. "Yeah, but you know what I mean." I didn't know what she meant. She meant that my life wasn't impressive enough to be treated with patience. She meant that being tired and trying didn't count unless it looked like success. She meant that my time was flexible because my life didn't look important. Inside, I could hear Mom laughing at something someone said, bright and performative. Dad's voice rumbled, telling a story he'd told 100 times. Every time I came to these gatherings, I told myself I'd keep it light. And every time, I ended up outside, eating alone, listening to the sound of my family being a family without me. "Why did you say that?" I asked Holly quietly, before I could talk myself out of it. "Take what you can get." She blinked like she hadn't expected to be questioned. Then she smiled again, that sweet smile she uses when she wants to look innocent. "Oh my God," she said. "It was a joke." "It didn't feel like a joke," I said. Holly's eyes narrowed slightly, irritation flashing through the charm. "You're doing the thing," she said. "What thing?" "The thing where you make everything into a big, emotional moment," she said, lowering her voice like she was being reasonable. "It's Easter. Everyone's happy. Can you just not?" There it was. The familiar request. Don't ruin the vibe. I looked at her, then at the plate, then at the backyard where the kids were squealing. My hand was shaking slightly, and I hated that too. I hated how my body always betrays me before I decide. "I'm not trying to ruin anything," I said. My throat tightened. I swallowed hard. I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter. Holly laughed again, sharper this time. You matter, she said, but it sounded like something you say to end a conversation, not something you believe. You're just sensitive. You take everything personally. I didn't respond right away because if I open my mouth, I might cry, and crying in my family is like bleeding in shark-infested water. They smell it and they circle. Holly stood up and brushed invisible crumbs off her dress. Anyway, she said, tone light again as if we'd discussed the weather. Mom wants a family photo soon. Try to be inside for that. Don't disappear. Don't disappear. As if disappearing wasn't the only way I could survive these moments. She went back inside without waiting for my answer. I sat there for another minute, staring at the half-eaten plate. My appetite was gone. My stomach felt hollow and heavy at the same time. I could feel the old familiar shame rising. Shame that I wasn't doing better. Shame that I was upset. Shame that I couldn't just laugh it off like everyone wanted. The thing is, I wasn't always behind. I had years where I was doing okay. I moved out early. I tried university. I tried different paths. I worked my way up in a job once and thought, maybe finally I'll be the version of myself my family respects. Then I burned out. I got anxious in a way that didn't feel like nervousness. It felt like my body was constantly bracing for impact. I started having this dread that wouldn't leave, like something bad was always around the corner. I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't have the words. My family doesn't do words. They do jokes. They do eye rolls. They do toughen up. So when I struggled, it became part of my identity in the family. The one who can't keep up. The one who's still figuring it out. The one you don't need to say the proper plate for because, well, take what you can get. I went back inside because Holly told me to, because a part of me still panics at the idea of being accused of disappearing. The dining room smelled like sugar and ham and people. Mom had already started corralling everyone for a photo. Okay, she called, clapping her hands. Let's get a family photo before the kids melt down. Everyone shuffled. People leaned into each other. Holly slipped right next to Mom, smiling bright. Dad stood with his arm around Mom like they were an advertisement. Ethan, my younger brother, hovered near the edge, looking uncomfortable, like he always does when there's tension he can't name. I stepped toward the group, and Mom's eyes flicked to me, quick and assessing, like she was checking whether I looked upset. Smile, Mom whispered under her breath as I took my place at the far edge, half behind a chair. Just smile. I tried. My face did the motion, but it felt like my skin didn't belong to me. The photo happened. The flash went off. Everyone relaxed, laughing, already moving on. Mom looked at the screen and said, "Perfect." And for a second, I had this weird out-of-body thought. If you looked at that photo, you'd never know. You'd never know there was a last plate. You'd never know there was a comet. You'd never know one person had eaten alone on the back steps. After the photo, people drifted back into their conversations. Holly went back to hosting, laughing loudly at someone's story. Dad started talking about work. Mom fussed over the kids. I stood near the kitchen counter, not sure where to put myself, and that was when my aunt, Mom's sister, Leanne, leaned in and said quietly, "You know, Holly means well. She just gets frustrated because she worries about your parents." She worries about my parents? I repeated, like ide mi should. Leanne nodded, lips pursed. It's been hard on them, she said, voice gentle like she was delivering a diagnosis. Watching you struggle. They don't know what to do with it. It stresses them out. It took me a second to even process the logic. So Holly humiliates me, I said slowly, because she's stressed? Leanne's eyes widened like I'd said something rude. I didn't say humiliate, she said quickly. She's just blunt. And you know how you can be. There was again. The blame boomerang. Whatever hits me gets thrown back at me with a smile. I could feel my pulse in my ears. My hands were cold. I looked around the kitchen at my family, at Dad laughing, at Mom moving plates like a conductor, at Holly in the center of it all. And something in me got tired in a new way. Not emotional tired. Bone tired. The kind of tired where your body decides it can't keep pretending. Ethan came up beside me and nudged my shoulder slightly. You okay? He asked low. I almost laughed. Almost. Because Ethan always asks that question like it's a small thing, like it's a normal check-in, and I love him for it. But also, what a ridiculous question in that moment. No, I said honest. Ethan's eyes flicked toward Holly, then back to me. She's being... Yeah, he murmured. Did you hear what she said? I asked. Ethan nodded once, jaw tight. Yeah. And I asked because I needed to know whether anyone was going to say anything besides me. Ethan swallowed. I told her to chill, he said. She said it was a joke. Of course. I looked at Ethan and saw, in his face, the same trapped feeling I'd had my whole life. Ethan isn't the golden one or the screw-up. He's the peacemaker. The one who hates conflict but hates injustice too. He's the one who wants everyone to be okay, which in our family usually means nobody confronts the person causing harm. Ethan leaned closer. You can leave if you want, he whispered. I'll say you had to go. The offer landed in my chest like a soft blanket. Not because I needed permission, but because it was the first time someone was making space for my choice without making it dramatic. Before I could answer, Mom called from across the room. Hey, can you help carry out the dessert trays? She didn't say my name. She never does when she's annoyed or stressed. She just calls out like I'm an available set of hands. I stood there for a second, feeling something split in me. The old me would have gone straight to help, because helpfulness is my survival strategy. The old me would have carried trays and smiled, and tried to earn my place back with usefulness. But I could still taste Holly's words in my mouth. Take what you can get. I looked at Mom. She was already moving, already assuming. Dad was talking, not paying attention. Holly was laughing again, not looking at me. The family machine was running smoothly, and my feelings were just sand in the gears they wanted swept away. I'm not hungry, I said quietly, mostly to myself. Then louder, Mom. Mom turned, eyebrows lifting. Yeah, she called, already impatient. I'm going to head off, I said. The room shifted in a subtle way. Not silence, but attention, like a camera refocusing. Mom's face tightened instantly. What? She asked, voice too sharp. You just got here. I know, I said, but my voice shook slightly, but I kept going. I'm tired, and I don't feel good here today. Mom's eyes flicked toward Holly, then back to me, panic rising behind her expression. Don't do this, she whispered, walking toward me fast, lowering her voice as she got close. Not in front of everyone. I felt my throat tighten again, but this time it was anger, not sadness. That's the point, I said quietly. It's always not in front of everyone. It's always later. It's always never. Mom's face went pale. What are you talking about? She hissed. Holly saved me the last plate, I said, and my voice cracked on plate, which made my cheeks burn. And she said, take what you can get in front of everyone. And everyone laughed. And I'm done pretending that's normal. Mom's eyes widened. Then she did the thing she always does. She looked around to see who might have heard. She was joking. Mom whispered desperately. It didn't feel like a joke, I said. Mom's mouth tightened. You're being sensitive, she said, and I watched her choose the familiar path. Minimize, blame, smooth. Holly stressed. She's been helping all day. You know how she is. I stare at Mom's face and realize she truly believed this was kindness. That protecting the vibe was love. That asking me to swallow humiliation was reasonable. Dad finally looked over, noticing the tension. What's going on? He asked, already annoyed, like the conflict itself was an inconvenience. I'm leaving, I said. Dad's eyebrows shot up. Over what? He demanded. You're always. He cut himself off, but the sentence was already there. Holly drifted over then, wine glass in hand, smile pasted on. What's happening? She asked sweetly. Why is everyone so serious? I looked at her and felt my stomach twist. You know, I said. Holly blinked, innocent. Oh my God, she said, laughing lightly. Is this about the plate? Are you kidding? You told me to take what I can get, I said. Holly shrugged. Because you came after we ate, she said, like it was obvious. What did you expect? A banquet? You're not the center of the universe. Dad snorted like that was a good line. Mom looked relieved because Holly was defending herself in a way Mom could hide behind. Leanne hovered in the background, eyes fixed on me like I was about to explode. I felt my body buzzing, that pre-cry, pre-shake feeling. My hands clenched and unclenched at my sides. I expected basic respect, I said, and my voice was steadier than I felt. If you didn't want to save me food, fine. But you didn't have to make a joke. You didn't have to make me feel like I should be grateful for scraps. Holly's smile slipped, irritation flashing. Scraps, she repeated, offended. Wow, you're dramatic. I'm not dramatic, I said, and my throat burned. I'm honest. Dad's face hardened. Don't start, he warned, like I was the problem about to ruin the day. Mom grabbed my arm lightly, nails pressing into my sleeve. Please, she whispered, eyes shining. Just help with dessert, take some home, and we'll talk later. Talk later. Always later. Later is where my pain goes to die quietly. I looked at Mom's hand on my arm, then at Ethan standing behind her, watching tense. Ethan's eyes met mine, and he gave the smallest nod, like, you can go. So I did. I gently pulled my arm free. I'm not staying, I said, and my voice wobbled on the last word. I'll call you later. Mom's face crumpled. You're embarrassing us, she whispered, and there was no cruelty in it, just fear. But it still hurt. Holly scoffed. There it is, she said. The exit. Classic. Dad muttered something under his breath that sounded like unbelievable. I grabbed my jacket from the chair where I'd tossed it when I came in. My hand was shaking so badly, I fumbled the sleeve. I hated that. I hated being visibly affected. I hated giving them proof that I'm sensitive. But I also knew, deep down, that leaving wasn't weakness. It was the only choice that didn't involve shrinking. I walked out through the front door, past the pastel decorations, past the baskets, past the laughter, and the air outside hit my face cool and clean. I stood on the porch for a second, just breathing, listening to the muffled sound of my family continuing without me. Inside, someone laughed again, bright and easy, like nothing had happened. In my car, my hand shook on the steering wheel. My throat ached. I blinked hard and stared straight ahead until my eyes stopped stinging. I didn't start the engine right away. I just sat there, feeling the quiet settle around me, feeling how heavy my body was. My phone buzzed. Mom, please don't do this. It's Easter. Come back. Dad, grow up. Holly, LOL, sorry you're allergic to jokes. Ethan, I'm proud of you. Drive safe. Call me when you get home. That last one made my chest ache in a different way. Because it was simple. No blaming. No minimizing. Just seeing me. I drove home with the radio off. When I got back to my apartment, I put the mini eggs I'd bought for the kids on the counter and stared at them like they were proof I'd tried. I sat on my couch and felt this mix of anger and grief that didn't have a neat place to land. Part of me wanted to text everyone a long paragraph explaining exactly why it hurt. Like if I explained well enough, they'd finally understand. Another part of me knew they wouldn't. They'd just screenshot it, laugh about it later, call it my episode. I don't know what the next step is. I don't have some cinematic resolution where my family suddenly realizes they've been cruel and apologizes with tears. That's not my family. My family survives on pretending the sharp things are jokes, and the wounded person is the problem for noticing. But I do know this. The plate wasn't just a plate. It was a summary. It was years of being last, being optional, being expected to accept whatever's left, food, attention, kindness, without complaint. And the moment Holly said, take what you can get, something in me finally answered quietly, I don't have to. So yeah, I left Easter lunch early. I drove home alone. The family will tell it like I stormed out because I was sensitive. They'll frame it as me ruining the day. They'll pretend the plate never happened. But I remember the weight of it in my hands. I remember the laugh that came too fast. And for the first time, I'm letting that memory mean what it actually means. I deserve more than scraps, even from people who call themselves family.